Welcome back to Breakfast. Each week we're going to try and demystify all things financial, and we're starting with KiwiSaver. 1.8 million of us are signed up to KiwiSaver, but many may be missing out on thousands of dollars, $72,000 each on average, that's according to the ANZ, simply by choosing default investment options. With us now to find out how to be smarter KiwiSavers is Amanda Morrall from interest.co.nz. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nadine.
What is it we're talking about when we're talking about default investment options?
So the default option is what happens if you don't actively choose a fund. And typically you get bumped into one of these if you're auto-enrolled for your work program, and there's 6 default providers that you're sort of randomly thrown into, and then they will bump you into a default fund. And these funds are deliberately structured to be the least riskiest of funds at all. They don't want to gamble with your money, so typically they're heavily invested in cash and bonds.
So why is it that they could cost you so much money over the lifetime of your involvement in the scheme?
Well, that's the theory. I'm just going to bring up the latest KiwiSaver performance results, because when you compare default funds to the performance of some of the other funds on the market, they've actually stood up very well indeed. So the average of the default fund over the last 4 years per annum has been 4.5%, and the conservative funds, which is just a moderately higher growth asset exposed, has been 4.6%. Now you compare that to a growth fund over the last 4 years per annum, they have returned 0.1%.
So is that to say that in tough economic times when share markets are all over the place, a conservative fund isn't a bad place to be?
That's right, yeah.
But perhaps over the longer term, when we can expect to see some more growth in share markets, it's not.
That's right. That's the conventional investment theory, that over the long course that the equities will return a higher gain for you, and therefore it makes sense if you're investing for the long course to have a higher exposure to that. And that's coming back to that ANZ wealth proposal that they suggested if you get stuck languishing in one of these default funds, that you could be robbing yourself. And their estimate was $72,000 over, say, between the ages of 25 to 65 by being stuck in one of those default funds.
So how then can you work out whether that is the best place for you to have your money or whether you should be going for something more aggressive?
There's a multifactorial decision-making process in there. It has to do with the kind of fees that you're paying on the fund, what the performance is, their investment process, whether they're communicating that information to you really well. So it can be very confusing and complicated. I would suggest the best place to start is by just doing some explorations yourself. Go onto our website, Sorted website, find out what your risk profile is, find out what your other liabilities are, and sort of weigh that into the equation. Seek some professional guidance if you find it all too overwhelming. Talk to other people.
I know some fund providers, if you're in the conservative option, they'll call you and say, is this the best place for you, and perhaps give you a few other options. Right. Should the onus be on them, or do you have to do some legwork?
I would say, you know, the responsibility rests with you. It's your money. Take an interest in it. You'll quickly see as it's gaining balance in there that there's something worth fighting for there. So, yeah, don't put the responsibility on somebody else. It is, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Tower does contact all its default fund providers and go with them, review with them their risk profile category, and then bump them up if they feel they need to.
Thank you, Amanda. That is Amanda Morrall from interest.co.nz.